Welcome back to the training series for the Rehabilitation Cost Calculation Tool for Mining and Exploration in New South Wales. This is Module 7. In this module, we'll look at the Infrastructure Area Input Sheet. The sheet calculates costs for decommissioning and rehabilitation of equipment and infrastructure. The sheet includes tables for disconnection of utility services, fencing, haul roads, tracks, laydown, airstrips and concrete pads and footings, buildings, tanks and vessels not associated with beneficiation, piping and cable tray not associated with beneficiation, power poles, substations and communication towers, overpasses, rail facilities, concrete crushing, more on that later, bores not associated with exploration, flares associated with gas plants, land rehabilitation, including constructing drainage for water management, maintenance and repairs of rehabilitated areas, sourcing and applying growth media and ameliorants, and revegetation, and removal and disposal of waste and contaminated soil treatment. User build tables are available for haul roads, tracks, and laydown areas, and we will go through those later. When working with this sheet, there are a few essential details to understand. Concrete management costs. The cost for managing concrete, such as a slab tied to a building, are already built into the default rates for those specific activities. However, the crushing concrete item applies to standalone concrete areas, like an orphan slab, or when a site opts to crush large volumes of concrete on site instead of disposing it off-site. Measurement options for roads and tracks. The default rates offer two ways to measure roads and tracks, allowing flexibility based on the data you have available. If you can easily measure the length of roads and tracks, use the length unit, which is in kilometres. This option assumes a standard width, which you can find in the Assumptions General Sheet. Alternatively, if your GIS system provides area measurements, you can use the area unit, measured in hectares. Switching between length and area will automatically update the unit and default rate in the system. Land type considerations. For tracks, roads, and laydown areas, you'll need to select the appropriate land type from the options pasture, native, or arid. Keep in mind that rates for arid land types do not include costs for growth media or revegetation, as they are not typically required. Let's walk through an example to see how the costs for a mine or group of mines are built up across the modules. In each module, we'll carry forward the quantities entered in previous modules, giving you a clear picture of how the costs come together. The Infrastructure Area Sheet is designed for ease of use. Most tables require just a single entry and a selection from a drop-down, making data input straightforward. For tables covering tracks, roads, and laydown areas, you'll need to make a couple of selections, such as land type and measurement unit, but these are still simple to navigate. This sheet offers significant flexibility in how you enter quantities. You can distribute them across the columns based on your preferred approach. For this example, we'll demonstrate how a user might group disturbances by specific areas. Each column will represent a distinct area, with the quantities entered in that column reflecting the disturbances specific to that area. We will work with two areas, Area A and Area B. To begin with, we will assign Area A to the Activity row. The Notes row allows you to add specific details or general information about each infrastructure area. For Area A, which focuses on roads and tracks for a small mine, we'll note Area A Roads and Tracks. For Area A, we'll enter the following quantities: 10 hectares of haul road covered with rock in a native vegetation area, and 5 hectares of track covered with gravel, also in a native vegetation area. In the haul road table, input 10 hectares, select native for vegetation, and choose area as the unit. Similarly, in the tracks table, enter 5 hectares, select native for vegetation, and again choose area as the unit. Since the default rates for haul roads and tracks already include land rehabilitation costs, there's no need to add quantities to the land rehabilitation tables for this column. Area B is an administrative area with several buildings, a remote utilities connection, 2 kilometres of medium voltage power line that the proponent is responsible for removing, a substation, airstrip, and some fencing. Because we have several buildings and fencing that will require the use of adjacent columns, we enter Area B to all columns that we will use for this area. We enter 1 for the utility disconnection. The fencing is a standard cyclone fence and there is 3 kilometers of it with signage. For the signage, we need to jump over a column and enter 3 kilometers here. The default rates for the buildings include some park-up area, but this facility also includes a gravelled entry track to the buildings that is 3 kilometers long, so we enter that here. The airstrip is 1.5 kilometers long and 30 meters wide, so we enter the calculation 1.5 times 1,000 to get 1,500 meters, times 30 to get the area, divided by 10,000 to get hectares, which gives us 4.5 hectares. The airstrip is earthen, so we pick the no cover option. There are several different building types, so we need to enter those to different columns. The first building is best represented by the selection for large brick wall, steel roof, concrete floor of footprint 2,000 square meters. The building footprint is actually 2,200 square meters, so that is what we enter here. There are several buildings of about 50 square meters, best represented by the small brick wall, steel roof, concrete floor option. There are 3 of these buildings, so we enter 150 square meters. We have 2 amenities rooms and 1 control room, so we enter those to the next adjacent columns. The buildings include 2 rainwater tanks, so we enter those here. We enter 2 kilometers under medium voltage power lines. We then select the medium footprint substation and enter the actual footprint, which is 2,300 square meters. The default rates for buildings and substations do not include land rehabilitation, so we must add quantities for growth media and revegetation. It is recommended that we enter the land footprint in the appropriate column, but we don't have to do this if it can be clearly explained. In this case, we will enter land footprints according to the activities in each column. The large building column requires land rehabilitation of 0.3 hectares, which allows for a border around the 2,200 square meter or 0.22 hectare building footprint. For the 3 small buildings, we will enter 0.02 hectares, which allows for a border around the footprint of 150 square meters or 0.015 hectares. The total area required to rehabilitate the amenities room is 0.15 hectares and the control room is 0.01 hectares, again allowing for a border around the building footprint. The land does not require ameliorants, but does need revegetation, so we enter the same quantities as those entered for growth media to the revegetation table, and we will pick hand-cast native seed. There is no need to enter any waste associated with the substation because these costs are included in the default rate. We will now look at the user build tables, which are available for restoration of haul roads, tracks, and laydown. The user build tables allow us more flexibility but require more attention to detail. As a reminder, the user tables are revealed by selecting Show in the toggle on the left. And if you have entered quantities in the default tables above, you do not have to enter quantities for the same item in the user build tables. We will now go through a haul road example. We have 2 types of haul roads. 50 hectares is covered with rock and 25 hectares is earthen. So we enter those quantities into 2 separate columns and select the appropriate cover material. When earthen is selected, the default rate for load and haul cover is automatically set to 0 as there is no material to load and haul. For the rock-covered haul road, we must select the one-way distance to which the cover will be taken. In this case, we will select the 1,500 metre to 2,000 metre category. Through rehabilitation of several haul roads in the past, we have evidence of actual cost rates, which is $4.50 per cubic metre. We can enter that as an alternate rate and provide justification in the notes section to the right. Once we remove the rock cover, we need to rip and trim the haul road, so we will accept the areas suggested by the tool in both these tables and select a 14G grader. We do not need to decompress as well, so we will set the area in the decompress table to 0. We do need to decompress the earthen haul road, so we accept the area suggested by the tool and we select a D8 dozer. We don't have to rip the earthen haul road, so we will set that area to 0. but we do have to trim, so we will accept the area suggested by the tool for trimming and select a 14G grader. We now need to add quantities for growth media, amelioration, and revegetation. The tool suggests the appropriate area for each of these, and we will accept those areas. If the user wanted to change those areas, they can enter the values to the override rod. We now select the distance from which growth media will come, and we assume in this case it will be in the 2,500 to 3,000 meter range. We will assume both haul road types require amelioration with gypsum, so we select gypsum and accept the area suggested by the tool. We now select the one-way distance to the gypsum supply, and we will assume this is 55 kilometers, so select the 50 to 60 kilometer range. The last land rehabilitation table is for revegetation, and the tool suggests the area based on the growth media area. We will leave this as suggested. The revegetation scope in the user build section has separate tables for the elements that make up revegetation. That is, purchasing seed or plants, applying the seed or planting the plant, or applying a hydro product, buying the fertilizer, applying the fertilizer, an allowance for acquiring water, and applying the water. For each column, the selections by the user must be consistent. For example, if hydro seeding with pasture seed is selected, the selections for fertilizer and water must also be hydro seeding with pasture seed. We will select native for all these and handcast seeding. As for all the sheets, subtotals for each table are shown in the black lines at the end of each section, and then the total for each column is shown at the top of the sheet. The total for the sheet is shown on the left-hand side, and then above that is the total for the entire RCE, so the user can see in real time how quantities entered to the local sheet affect the total RCE. Let's jump over to the RCE summary to see how the total is building up. As you can see, we now have rolled up costs for the infrastructure mine entries and infrastructure area domains.